Everything you've ever known, your body, your mind, your memories, even the very sense of who you are, is part of an illusion. It's not a mistake or a flaw, but a deliberate and sacred illusion so complete that you forgot you were dreaming. From the moment you opened your eyes in this world, you were taught to believe in separation, that there's you and then everything else. You were given a name, a history, a culture, a roadmap for how life should be. And you believed it because you needed to. You trusted the people around you. But what if all of that, your fears, your ambitions, your ideas about time and space, was never the full picture? What if reality isn't something that just happens to you, but something that happens through you? This is the full story of Maya. Not just an ancient word or a poetic metaphor, but the very force shaping all your experiences. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. From your earliest memories, you were taught to see yourself as separate. From others, from nature, from the universe itself. The world around you was described in opposites, good and bad, right and wrong, me and them. It seemed obvious. Here's a body, and there's the world outside. You feel joy, others cause pain. You have thoughts, others express theirs. Yet beneath that surface certainty, something always felt off. A quiet longing you couldn't put your finger on, like something was missing though you couldn't say what. That's the first illusion, Maya's strongest mask, separation. The illusion of separation isn't just spiritual, it's sensory. Your eyes show distinct objects. Your ears pick up only fragments of sound. Your mind treats each thing as isolated. But perception isn't reality. It's interpretation. You don't see the world as it is. You see it how your mind interprets it. And that interpretation was shaped by systems designed to keep division alive. What if the boundaries between you and everything else aren't real? What if they're just temporary constructs useful for survival but meaningless at the deepest level? This isn't just mysticism. It's physics. The same quantum field flowing through a blade of grass flows through your veins. The particles making up your brain can't be separated from their environment. They're connected, inseparable, interactive. And yet, here you are, taught to believe you're a single, solid, separate being in a world of others. Maya isn't a lie the way we usually think of lies. It's not deceit. It's distortion. A lens that distorts the infinite into individuality so convincingly that we spend our whole lives trying to get back to a place we never left. We're taught to look for meaning, purpose, and salvation outside ourselves. But the wise voices from every tradition whispered something else. What you're looking for is inside you, not metaphorically, but literally, because it doesn't exist outside. The same consciousness flowing through everything flows through you. The ocean doesn't end where the wave begins. And that quiet yearning you felt your whole life, that ache you tried to soothe with people, possessions, or achievements, isn't weakness, it's memory. The memory of unity buried beneath the noise of separation is the deepest part of you remembering that this fragmented world was never the whole story. Maya creates the illusion so consciousness can experience itself through limits, contrast, and duality, not to suffer, but to learn, grow, and remember. And it's here, in that remembering, that the illusion starts to fade, not all at once, but in moments. When you look into someone's eyes and forget where you end and they begin. When you get lost in a sunset, in music, in stillness, and for a moment the boundary disappears. These moments aren't accidents. They're glimpses of what's always been true. What you're awakening to isn't just a new idea. It's your original state. Before you knew your name, before your story began, you were already whole. And even though the illusion feels dense, remember this. It was made to be seen through. Maya isn't a mistake or a glitch in the system. It's the system itself. The way the infinite becomes finite. The eternal enters time, and the unlimited pretends to have a name and a face. Calling it an illusion risks missing its deepest beauty. Maya isn't here to trick you. It's here to give consciousness something it can't know in its raw, formless state. The beauty of limits. The thrill of becoming. The ancient sages of India didn't call Maya a lie. They called it the divine art of the universe, the creative force that brings the universe into existence, just like light creates shadows to give things shape. Without it, Brahman, the absolute, the formless, the eternal, would stay unexpressed. Maya is the dance of expression. It's how the formless become stars, trees, cities, the sound of a child laughing, and the silence between your thoughts. But to join this play, the one has to forget itself. That's the price of the game. Like an actor so deep in their role they forget the stage, the infinite becomes the individual and believes it. You were never meant to stay lost in the role, but the illusion is convincing. That's what makes it sacred. The dream is powerful because it feels real when you stub your toe, cry over lost love, or fear death. These aren't surface illusions. They're experiences. And experiences are exactly why consciousness split in the first place. To feel, to taste, to touch itself through form. Maya is the mask the divine wears to know itself in every possible way. But we made the mistake of mistaking the mask for our real face. We got so used to the story that we forgot we were playing a part. We believed the story so deeply we stopped questioning the script. Every layer of Maya is built to support the role. Your name, your gender, your nationality, your beliefs, your goals. None of these is inherently false. They're just not the whole truth. They're temporary vessels for consciousness. Like waves breaking on the ocean's surface, they exist but aren't separate. They're just the surface expression of something much deeper. And here's Maya's paradox. The more real it feels, the more powerful it becomes. If you went through life constantly aware that this is all a projection, you wouldn't experience the full range this reality has to offer. Love would lose its pain, loss would lose its weight, beauty would lose its edge. But by forgetting, you feel everything, and feeling is how the infinite grows. The Vedic sages talked about Leela, the divine play. Maya isn't a prison. It's the stage. It gives meaning to the act of remembering. And remembering is everything, because one day the actor will look in the mirror and recognize the face beneath the makeup. The dreamer will stir within the dream. And when that happens, the illusion doesn't disappear. It just becomes transparent. You'll still live in a body. You'll still have a name. But behind your eyes, a new awareness will shine. Not as someone searching for truth, but as the truth itself, momentarily choosing to search. Long before telescopes and labs, long before equations and particle accelerators, there were those who sat in silence and closed their eyes. Not to sleep, but to see what could be seen without instruments. Modern science is only starting to catch glimpses, through microscopes and quantum equations, across time, across cultures, across languages, that mystics and physicists arrived at the same surprising truth. Reality isn't what it seems. The sages of the Upanishads described the universe as a dream projected by Brahman, the formless absolute. They called Maya the sacred veil, something that looks real to the senses but dissolves under direct awareness. Thousands of years later, Buddhist teachings describe the world as impermanent, interdependent, and without a fixed identity. Taoists pointed to the dance of yin and yang, not as two things, but as a movement seen in parts. Ancient Egyptian Hermetic teachings said, all is mind, the universe is mental. Then came quantum physics. After centuries of breaking down the material world, Western scientists split the atom and discovered the unexpected. Matter isn't solid. It's patterns of probability, a dance of potential. What we call a particle only becomes a particle when observed. Before that, it's a wave, a cloud of possibilities. The famous double-slit experiment showed that light behaves like a wave until it's measured, and then it collapses into a particle. In other words, reality changes when you look at it. Werner Heisenberg, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, said, "What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning." Put simply, reality isn't objective. It responds to the observer. The idea that consciousness shapes the world we see isn't just spiritual metaphor, it's a scientific principle. Physicist and philosopher David Bohm suggested that behind what we see, there's an implicate order, a hidden field of pure potential from which everything unfolds. He described the universe not as separate parts, but as an indivisible whole that seems fragmented because of how we perceive it. This matches the Upanishadic view of Brahman, an undivided consciousness showing up in countless forms. Erwin Schrödinger, the physicist behind Schrödinger's cat, studied the Upanishads closely. He came to believe consciousness is singular, that the idea of separate minds is an illusion, and that what looks like many minds is really one mind experiencing itself from many perspectives. As he said, there is no structure in which we can find consciousness in the plural. That is something we create because there are many individuals. But it's not true. When you start to notice these connections, something inside you shifts. It's not that science is finally proving spirituality. It's that both have always been looking at the same mystery from opposite sides of the mirror. The mystic retreats into silence to find truth. The scientist breaks down what's visible to understand what's invisible. And somewhere in the middle, their hands meet. This matters because it breaks down the wall between the spiritual and the real, the sacred and the scientific. The story you were told, that spirituality is feeling and science is fact, is Maya in disguise, another illusion of division. But when you put these traditions side by side, they start speaking the same language, the language of unity, consciousness, and possibility. And that leads to a powerful conclusion. The world doesn't exist independently of you. It's shaped by you, by your perception, your questions, your consciousness. Not because you're imagining it, but because you're part of it. Reality isn't a fixed stage. It's a participatory event. This isn't just philosophy, it's your life. There's a question older than all religions, deeper than any teaching, lurking behind every thought you've ever had. Who is the one who sees, not just with the eyes, but who perceives your thoughts, feelings, the rise and fall of your body? Who's the silent observer behind the mask of personality? You've worn many masks in life: child, student, lover, friend, stranger. And each came with its own script, its own expectations. But behind every role was something constant, something that didn't age with your body, something that didn't leave when others did. That presence, that witnessing awareness, isn't part of the roles you play. It's who you really are. Yet most people never question the character. They live their whole lives as the mask, confusing the temporary with the eternal. This is the subtlest trick of Maya, the illusion of identity, the belief that you are your story. You were given a name before you understood what it meant. You were told who you are by people who didn't know themselves. You inherited fears, beliefs, wounds, and called it your personality. Over time, you built a self-image from memories, praise, rejection, and habits. But identity isn't essence. The person you think you are is a carefully crafted illusion, a useful tool, sure, but not the truth. Like a dream that feels real while you're in it. The ego, the me you talk about every day, seems solid, but when you ask, who am I really? And look inward, you don't find a fixed answer. You find silence, space, something watching it all yet untouched by any of it. Ramana Maharshi, one of modern India's most respected sages, made this question central to his teachings. Who am I? Not to get a simple answer, but to dissolve all the false ones. Because every answer is just another layer of illusion. Every title, every trauma, every talent. None of it touches that quiet part of you that watches it all. And that quietness isn't just yours. It's not personal. It's the same consciousness shining through every pair of eyes. The differences between people are just differences in appearance, expression, experience. But the one who observes is the same presence behind billions of faces. This is what Maya hides, and, paradoxically, what it reveals once you start waking up. It hides your true nature behind the mask of the self, behind the noise of thoughts, behind the act of being someone. But the moment you notice the act, something amazing happens. You stop believing the character is the whole story. You start to feel the dreamer inside the dream. And this isn't just a metaphor. Every night you fall asleep and enter a world where you run, talk, fear, and rejoice while your body lies still. The dream feels real until you wake up. Then you say, it was just a dream. But what if waking from this dream works the same way? What if death is just waking up from the illusion of separation, identity, and time? The more you watch yourself, the less power the illusion has. When you watch a thought instead of becoming it, you create space. When you feel an emotion without getting swept away, you start to taste freedom, not the kind that comes from changing the world, but the kind that comes from no longer being trapped by it. Because the truth is, you were never just a character in this story. You've always been the author. But at some point, you read the book so deeply, with so much emotion, that you forgot you were holding the pen. Now the story begins to shift because you remember. Maya isn't just a mystical veil floating somewhere out there. It's woven into your everyday life, in the way you talk, think, and react automatically. If Maya is the illusion of reality, then culture is its echo. And the strongest illusions are the ones you never realize you've accepted. From your first day of school, you were taught not to think, but to remember, repeat, obey. You stood when told, sat when told, asked permission to speak, and learned that being right mattered more than being curious. Every gold star, every grade, every approving smile wasn't education. It was conditioning. Conditioning to seek approval, to measure your worth by outside standards, to believe security comes from fitting in. So a system was built where success means conformity. Rebellion gets punished instead of discussed, and asking the wrong question can make you the wrong kind of person. This is Maya's subtlest form, not just an illusion of the senses, but an illusion of self-worth. You're told who to be, what to value, what kind of life is worth living, and you rarely question it because questioning threatens the identity you were given. That identity becomes the lens through which you see everything else. Carl Jung understood this well. He saw how people carry not just their personal stories, but inherited archetypes and roles passed down by culture. You think you choose your beliefs, but often your beliefs choose you. Picked up piece by piece through repetition, symbols, stories, and the invisible pressure to belong. Then there's language, the oldest kind of spell. Every phrase you learned as a kid carried hidden meanings. Don't answer taught you that doubt is disrespect. Be a good boy taught you obedience earns love. That's just how things are taught you resistance is pointless. Those words were more than rules, they were scripts. Over time, those scripts became your inner voice. Even the stories meant to entertain weren't innocent. Think of the heroes. Always chosen, always noble, always sacrificing their own desires for duty. Think of the villains. Always outsiders, always rebels, those who refused to follow. You weren't just watching stories. You were being taught what kind of person to become. Maya isn't kept in place by force. It's kept alive by consent. And most of us consent without even realizing it. We agree to chase goals we didn't pick. We agree to smile while hurting. We agree to compete instead of connect. We agree to keep the system running even when it wears us down. Then, when something inside you starts to ache, when that quiet, persistent question arises, is this all there is? You're told it's just stress, or adulthood, or hormones, anything but the truth, because the system has no place for someone who sees through it. But that question is a door, and once you open it, it's hard to close, because deep down you already know the system isn't real. The 9-to-5 grind, empty victories, consumer identity, you know it's all a performance. And more than that, you know you're not the role you're playing. You can feel your true self just beneath the surface, watching, waiting, remembering. This is the psychological matrix, not built by machines, but by generations of unconscious minds, not forced by tyrants, but created by stories, screens, and social norms. And just like in a dream, the moment you realize you're dreaming, the illusion starts to lose its hold. The power was never out there. It was in your attention, your awareness, your refusal to keep playing the part that no longer fits. And when enough people start seeing through it, the matrix doesn't just crack, it falls apart. At some point, if you pay attention, the illusion starts to flicker, not in some big mystical event, but in quiet, almost invisible moments. A pause in conversation when your mind stops trying to figure it out. A breath where your usual anxiety doesn't show up. A brief feeling that you're not inside your thoughts, but outside, watching them. At first, it doesn't last long, but it's enough. Enough to make you question whether the version of reality you were sold is the whole story or just a disguised piece of it. This is the moment when the veil starts to lift, not because Maya failed, but because you were never meant to stay asleep forever. The illusion had to be convincing. Otherwise, the game wouldn't work. You wouldn't feel the joy of waking up unless you first went through the pain of forgetting. But seeing through Maya doesn't mean rejecting life or checking out of the world. It means seeing clearly. It means no longer being hypnotized by the surface of things. You still walk the same streets, eat the same meals, say the same name, but something inside you has shifted. The weight behind your identity, the tension behind your goals, the desperation behind your striving, all of it loosens, and in that space, something opens up. Consciousness breathes again. Ancient seers mapped this territory long before modern life forgot about it. In Vedanta, reality is described in 3 layers. First, Vyavaharika, the practical, apparent reality, like dreams or illusions. Second, Vyavaharika, the functional reality, the shared world where things work, where society runs, where water quenches thirst. But beyond both lies Paramarthika, the absolute, formless, timeless truth, untouched by thought, name, or senses. Most people never look past the second layer. They live in the functional reality, assuming it's the whole truth. But the mystic sees beyond, not by denying the world, but by seeing it as it really is. Fluid, impermanent, interconnected, a dance of appearances unfolding on the stage of consciousness. And once you catch a glimpse of that, even for a moment, you can't fully go back. It's like seeing the painting and then noticing the canvas behind it. The story stays compelling, the characters still convincing, but you're no longer lost in the plot. You become aware of the space between scenes, the silence beneath the sound, the presence behind the personality. Maya doesn't disappear. It turns translucent. You'll still feel pain, but now you can watch it come and go. Instead of becoming it, your thoughts will pass through you like clouds instead of storms. You'll still play roles, but you'll know they're just costumes you wear lightly. This is the return to presence, the simple, bare awareness that's always been with you. The same presence you knew as a child before you learned your name. The same presence that saw your first memory form and will remain after the last one fades. It doesn't argue, explain, or seek. It just is. And when you rest in that presence, even for a moment, Maya starts to fulfill its deepest purpose, which isn't to trap you but to wake you up, to pull you so deeply into the illusion that the only way out is through it. Not by escaping or rejecting, but by seeing clearly. And the moment you truly see, the illusion itself becomes sacred. Maya is often mistaken for a curse, a cosmic trick, a barrier between you and the truth. But those who have walked the inner path long enough begin to see something more, something deeper. That Maya isn't your enemy but your teacher. It's the veil that hides and reveals, the paradox that conceals the truth while leading you toward it. It's not a trap, but a design. Not punishment, but purpose. Imagine this: infinite consciousness, untouched and eternal. Pure being without form, history, or other. What would it know of love without separation? What would it know of growth without limits? What would it know of beauty without contrast? It would know nothing. So it projects itself into time, space, and matter. It chooses to forget itself so it can rediscover itself in every possible way. Through you, through me, through every life, every heartbreak, every dawn. Maya is the canvas where the formless paints experience. The problem isn't that Maya exists. The problem is that we confuse the painting for the painter. We get so caught up in the brushstrokes, identity, success, pleasure, pain, that we forget who's holding the brush. But forgetting has always been part of the game. Forgetting sets the stage for remembering, and the moment you remember, even the hardest chapters in your story start to show a strange kind of grace. This is Maya's deepest role, not just to hide the truth, but to reveal it through experience. Every desire you chased, every fear you ran from, every role you played, each was a disguised lesson, not meant to trap you, but to bring you closer to the one thing you can never lose, your own consciousness. The Gita says, "This Maya of mine is hard to overcome, but those who take refuge in me transcend it." That me isn't a person or deity, but consciousness itself. The only way out of Maya isn't resistance, but return. Return to the awareness behind all experience. Return to the presence that was never fooled, even when you were. And that return doesn't mean leaving the world behind. It doesn't mean giving up possessions or retreating to a cave. The world doesn't need to be escaped. It needs to be seen clearly. Every interaction, irritation, joy is an invitation to wake up, to see through the mask without tearing it off, to join the illusion with open eyes. This is what the mystics meant when they talked about the world as divine play, Leela, not chaos or randomness, but theater. The sacred drama where the one becomes many, and the many slowly start to remember they were always one. And in that remembering, something softens. You stop fighting life. You stop needing it to go your way. You stop seeing challenges as punishments and start seeing them as lessons. The pain that once broke you becomes the power that opens you up. The loss that emptied you becomes the space that reveals something deeper. The fear that once froze you becomes the doorway you step through. Trembling, yes, because Maya doesn't just show you what you're not. It leads you to what you truly are. Through false identities, you find the real. Through impermanence, you taste the eternal. Through limitation, you reclaim freedom. And here's the cosmic joke. You were never really lost. You were just playing hide and seek with yourself, and Maya was the playground all along. When the illusion starts to unravel, a question pops up almost right away. If this world isn't real, then what is? If my memories, my identity, even my thoughts can be twisted or disappear, what's left? And here Maya pulls its last trick. It doesn't just dissolve the world you thought was solid. It opens the door to a new way of defining reality. You were taught to think reality is physical. If you can touch it, measure it, weigh it, it's real. But what about the unmeasurable? Love, presence, consciousness, perception. You've never looked at a thought under a microscope, yet it shapes your whole world. You've never touched a moment of peace, yet you know when you're in one. Maybe reality isn't about density, but about depth. Maybe the things that last the longest can't be seen. The Upanishads say the world is neti-neti, not this, not that. When you try to define reality by what it looks, sounds, or feels like, you lose it, because reality isn't what appears. It's the consciousness that allows things to appear. And when you really get this, you start to see. It's not the objects in the world that are real, but the space where they show up. That space is you, not the you with a name and story, but the calm, unchanging awareness that's seen everything unfold. That which never grows old, never panics, never clings. That alone is real. Everything else, the drama, the dreams, the decorations, comes and goes. But that doesn't make the world meaningless, it makes it sacred. When you know it's a dream, you stop being a prisoner and become a lucid participant. You stop clinging to outcomes and start experiencing. You stop trying to control and start watching. And in that watching, you don't lose connection. You find it. The more you understand Maya, the more you realize it's not about escaping reality, but about changing how you see it. The illusion was never punishment. It was a training ground, a mirror, a hidden teacher. And when you stop fighting the dream, it starts teaching you everything it was meant to teach. That's why ancient traditions never told you to reject the world. They asked you to clear your vision, to stop seeing through the lenses of fear, desire, and separation. The addictions behind form, because when you do, something deep happens. You begin to act in tune with truth. You speak with compassion, not because it's the right thing, but because you realize you're talking to yourself. You forgive, not out of nobility, but because you see how holding resentment in a dream is pointless. You let go, not out of weakness, but because you finally get that nothing real can be lost. And here's where most people get awakening wrong. They think it means floating above life, detached and untouched. But true awakening isn't detachment. It's intimacy. You don't lose your humanity. You find it fully. You feel more, love deeper, see clearer. You cry without shame, laugh for no reason. You give without expecting anything back. And when this shift happens, everything becomes medicine. Your mistakes, your shadow, your old conditioning. Because now you see it all as movement within the dream. Ripples in consciousness. Not something to fix or fight, but something to learn from and let go of. This is what real freedom feels like. Not escape, but presence. Not numbness, but clarity. Not a new set of beliefs, but the absence of illusion. You stop needing certainties and start trusting the unknown. You stop chasing purpose and start living it. And if there's one thing to take from this, let it be this. Maya was never your prison. It was your path. And now, as the veil lifts, you get to choose how to walk it. Now that you see the illusion, what will you do with it? This is where most people hesitate. When the structures you leaned on start falling apart, when the beliefs you held no longer make sense, it's tempting to pull back, to retreat from life, to seek isolation while calling it awakening. But awakening isn't disconnecting. It's re-entering life with open eyes. Not as a character, but as consciousness playing the role. Not to escape the dream, but to dream consciously, deliberately, and fully present. You're still here in human form, moving through senses, moving through time. Yet something inside you is free, untouched by fear, beyond roles, no longer hypnotized by the noise. You don't have to leave the world behind. You just have to stop mistaking it for absolute truth. This is where Maya shows its greatest gift. It wasn't set before you to trick you, but to bring you back to yourself. Every illusion it made, every identity you took on, every joy and sorrow you lived, everything led you here, not to the end of the story, but to the start of your real life. For now, you can live, not from conditioning, fear, or expectation, but from clarity. And that kind of clarity is powerful. It doesn't shout or argue, it simply sees. And by seeing, it acts, not to fix the world, but to express what's true. When you live from that awareness, you become the dreamer who knows they're dreaming. You'll still work, still face challenges, still have conversations, but you won't be consumed by the noise. You'll be aware of the silence beneath it all, the stillness that's always been there. And that's where the quiet revolution happens. When you start living from awareness, the illusion loses its grip. You don't chase meaning anymore, you create it. You stop asking for permission to be yourself. You just are. And when others pick up on that in you, something shifts in them too, because authenticity is contagious. Consciousness spreads, not by preaching, but by presence. That's why your awakening matters. Not just for you, but for everyone around you. The system that runs on unconsciousness fears nothing more than people who see clearly, live fully, and act from truth. One awakened person, moving through the illusion with love, clarity, and grace, is more powerful than any protest or ideology. You've already started the process of remembering, but remembering is just the first step. Now it's time to embody it, to live from it, letting awareness guide your choices, your creativity, your relationships. The dream isn't over. It's just become lucid. From here on out, you're no longer a passive observer. You're an active participant. You start shaping the illusion from inside, not to control it, but to fill it with meaning, integrity, and love. Let this be your turning point. It's not a call to walk away from the world, but to come back to it with presence. Speak honestly, act with love, Create on purpose, and above all, don't fall back asleep. The system will try. Distractions will come. But the more you stay rooted in awareness, the harder it'll be to forget. And if you've made it this far, still seeking, still learning, still waking up, don't stop now. The dream can be beautiful, but the truth is even more breathtaking. If this message resonates with you, let us know in the comments. I get it.